Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. And today we are joined by none other than Mr. Viz, aka Gary. We are going to get into some bright lights, first impressions, our thoughts. We might argue and might get after each other. You know, we have different opinions, and that is the beautiful thing about the internet. Is everybody's opinions is different, and we're all very civil about it all the time. But before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the show, which is you, the patron, which you can find the link for the Patreon in the show notes below in the link tree, as well as links for the Buds Discord, which is a great place to hang out, and Twitter, X, all that stuff, YouTube. If you listen to this, if you watch this on YouTube, maybe go check out the Spotify. If you ever, taking the bus somewhere, perhaps maybe to your local armory, and helps all helps the show. So, without further ado, we're gonna get to Gary and hopefully have a little time for Charmer at the end. All right, we are here with Mr. Viz, aka Gary, aka Techlo Viz, whatever you want to call him. This man is here, and he is going to tell us all of his opinions about bright lights, and I'm going to share mine as well. Obviously, this is a two-man show. This is a two-man operation, and rub your eyes. This is not the Bud Rush Bell. This is Fresh and Buds. So this is the second time Gary's been on the show, and we'll see if it will be the last. But but before we get to any kind of opinions or impressions or any ideas, I want to know speculations. I want to know how you are. What is going on? I've been very busy. You've been busy. We don't get to chat as much lately.
Yeah.
And basically, I'm ready. I'm just driven up a wall right now with work and stuff like that. So I'm happy to have you on this week. What's going on?
Yeah. So I've been really busy, like you said. I'm been doing a lot more at my LGS, trying to get a lot more of the community engaged. We're seeing some like dwindling numbers because things are fading in and out. People are getting busy during the fall. So I'm drumming up some new ideas around the card shop. I'm actually getting ready to judge in Dallas. I'm going to be judging the calling on the Saturday, so that's going to be awesome. So I'm just doing a little bit of light reading of the comprehensive rules. Actually, the episode with oh my gosh, I forget her name.
Erica.
Judge Erica. Yeah, so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I love the episode. I'm gonna get myself a little book, write all the things in it, because like her notes gave me a lot more confidence that I was feeling down about it. I was like, am I ready? And that episode was great. So I highly recommend going back and listening to it if you missed it. But yeah, man, I've been good. Just hitting the books and putting boots on the ground.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm also hitting the books, but not for Flesh and Blood, for class, regular boring class stuff, which nobody wants to hear about because it's boring.
Which class? Warrior,
brute. No.
Okay.
It's always brute. I'm studying. Really trying to figure it out. It turns out sixes are really important, and discarding sometimes, but also banishing in some brutes. But no, I gotta say, I also have felt the dwindling numbers thing at Armory, and this week I think will be a big test to that because we're drafting again.
Yeah.
And there was just not a lot of people wanting to play CC, and I get that, and we didn't fire a couple weeks in a row, which I'm almost worried that they'll lose their Armory kit because some buds had mentioned that they had some issues with that as well. But I'm hoping not. But we will see. It's an interesting time in Flesh and Blood. I think this is going to be the next month or so. Actually, until New Year's, when we'll talk about in a hot second, we get our next set. This will be the true test, right? Because
we got Worlds too.
Worlds, yeah, true, yeah, Worlds. But like in terms of like your local play, your everyday players, your non super professional competitive players, this will be the true test. And I think Flesh and Blood Flesh and Blood's been through way more tests than this.
The pandemic. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And I think it will be okay. I just hope for the store's sake and their ideas about the game, I think that is the most important. I think a lot of people forget that, right? Because sure, you can love the game and be like, well, it's not that big of a problem. Like, I love the game, I still support it. But if the retailer is not happy or finds it to be a waste of time and money and energy, it's their business. They can easily drop it, right? It's like any other kind of product out there. So it's a matter of, as a community, kind of really putting that out there and giving faith to the retailer, and hopefully in an all mech set, and we'll get to it, is this limited good enough to get the non-mech players in playing. And spoiler alert, it just might be. Now, I also hinted at something that we just came across our desks as we were sitting here. Heavy Hitters. It is
Heavy Hitters,
the next Flesh and Blood set, world premiere in Queensland, New Zealand.
A lot of land.
Yeah, a lot of Queensland in New Zealand, and it is going to be in January. So is that usually the release weekend, or is that the pre-release weekend, or the weekend before pre-release?
So if it depends on the world, if it's like the world release, I know for like Uprising, and they did a world release, and it was the pre-release weekend. But because we all were doing pre-release, and then they were doing it in like Madrid and Vegas or whatever. But I think this is going to be like the whole release. But no, the article said your first opportunity to get your hands on this, so it probably is a pre-release.
Okay, very cool. So that way, it's the weekend of the 20th, January, which is unfortunate. I have a wedding.
You can't go to New Zealand.
I can't go to New Zealand. I mean, it's just a quick flight. I would have just hopped on with Brian.
Yeah,
Gottlieb was like, we probably shared a flight.
Absolutely,
we're tight like that. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I do want to kind of tag on to what you were saying about the stores, though, because it is a good point, right? Like, you need to make sure you're not just going to your store and leaving. You know what I mean? You got to talk. You got to make sure you're building that community. And like I alluded to earlier, like I'm doing that locally, and I know that the amount of effort it takes. So I definitely don't expect everybody to do it. But if you see a new player looking at a pack of cards, looking at a pack of Flesh and Blood, or even like round the table on the counter, which I have a story about that product happening on Friday. Strike up a conversation. Just be like, hey, how's it going? I know you mentioned Tommy, you've mentioned on the Bud Rush Bellow that every time the professor makes a video, you see a new person.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be that person sometimes. You know what I mean? You have to be, giving your draft chaff away to somebody, building these commoner decks. We're all opening these cases, maybe not, obviously not all of us, but we're opening these boxes, build decks and give them to the store. I'll talk a little bit about what I've been doing with the Bright Lights bulk, and what I've been doing with, in the community with Bright Lights when we talk to it a little bit later. But try and be innovative, try and be creative, try and be helpful with whatever spare time you have, because you are the game, like you said, is a retail product. So if it's not worth it for the store, then it's not going to be there to play.
Yeah. And I mean, I see it all the time in my everyday job as a beer salesman, right? Sure, it could be the best beer in the world.
Yeah.
But if everybody else is going in and buying, seltzers, doesn't matter. They're not going to, there's only so much shelf space on things. So you got to keep that in mind. So, but Heavy Hitters looks like a brute set, most likely will be to a certain extent. We don't really know a lot about it. We won't get too much into it just because it just came across the desk, but it's something to be hyped about for those who aren't perhaps not in the realm of liking mechanologist or even limited, because sometimes people just don't like limited, and that's like a totally fair thing. But pretty exciting. We don't know. We could speculate all we want. We don't really know yet, but it's definitely hinting at being at least brute, maybe guardian, maybe warrior, something like
Yeah.
that. But
Warrior would be nice because
yeah,
like just a generic war like adult Kasai would be really nice.
yeah, I think
Pretty
so.
nice.
I think both. Actually, all three of those classes I just said. Like, sure, we had Oldham, but Oldham was very different from like what we initially learned Guardian to be like.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. I hope it's some fun stuff. But let's do fresh faves. Let's do it first.
Yeah.
I think this is a good way to go first. Obviously, we know each other. I don't need to interview you. I've interviewed you before. This is we're just getting down to brass tacks, right? People need to know our impressions on Bright Lights before they can even formulate their own opinions.
We are guiding their impressions with our bright light.
I'm kidding. Please listen to us, but also form your own opinions. But only listen to our podcast. So fresh phase, Bright Lights only edition. First, Gary, I guess maybe we can each do them. What do you think?
Let's do it. I mean, why not? Throw the format. Let's break the format up.
We're just getting a little crazy. This is a little wild.
Crazy. A little wild west over here.
Who's your favorite hero from the set?
Well, does round the table count?
No.
This
is Bright Lights.
Okay, because I know you're not a Blitz guy, but I love Tekla-Vossen. I love Tekla-Vossen. I think he's a fantastic character.
You mean Professor Tekla, right?
Oh, well, you told me not to say Bright Lights.
Okay. But, yeah. I thought that you were saying.
Around the table. Yeah. I love Tekla-Vossen when he's, young, when he's old, when he's a professor. Mm-hmm. I love him through and through. I think he's going to be one of my go-to Blitz heroes, but it's very hard to replace Viserai for me in CC. So I'm going to have to go with Tekla-Vossen for sure. How about you?
Tekla-Vossen is pretty cool. In the time that I drafted him, I definitely really, really enjoyed drafting Tekla-Vossen.
Yeah.
I have played some CC with Tekla-Vossen. I did not like it at all.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because, like, I loved playing Oldham and Tales Limited, but ended up not really enjoying Oldham in CC. So, maybe that's just a limited thing, but mine's got to be Max if I'm gonna say like a constructed hero, because I think Max is very cool. I love the lines that you have to build with him.
Yeah,
and I honestly will enjoy him in young and adult versions, I believe, going forward. I imagine I'll build him as my Blitz hero.
Nice.
If I'm going to build anybody from this set, maybe CC, but I don't know. I booted up Riptide the other day, and I was like, man, I still love Riptide, and obviously Leviathan. Yeah. Now, what's your favorite weapon?
Teklo Leveler, baby. Oh, it's so good. Teklo Leveler is an amazing weapon. I don't know about you, but in Limited, I like having a weapon, a permanent weapon, and it's the only permanent weapon in Bright Lights Limited. So, gotta go with it. You can run out of shots. You can run out of shots in your gun with dash, and you can certainly run out of cranks with your wrench. But as long as you have an Evo equipped, you never run out of ammo, and I love it.
That's true, but you can run out of Evos.
You can, unless you play ones that don't block.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Are there ones that don't block?
All the instants don't block.
Yeah, but they have block values.
Yeah, but you can't lose them to Blade Break.
Oh, they don't have Blade Break?
Nope.
Wow. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. There you go.
See?
I did a whole set review. I mean, there was a lot of cards.
Well, you were doing constructed. Now, everybody else had no excuse.
Oh, okay. True. My favorite weapon's Banksy. Easily.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if they're gonna give you a wrench, I know you're gonna pick it.
Crank and bank, man. I just love it. It's so cool. It just feels like a 1-for-3. You're like, whatever. It doesn't even get counters. This isn't Dawnblade. But the way it works in that deck feels so right, and I think that's a really cool thing about it. I had to remind a few players at pre-release. It was like, You have to
You
crank.
have to
You have to
boost.
crank first.
Oh yeah, you have to
Yeah.
crank.
No, you don't have to boost. You only have to crank, which is kind of
The
cool.
ability is for the boost, right?
Yeah, abilities for the
Yeah.
boost, but you only have to crank.
Crank.
Which is obviously super flavorful. It's
Yeah.
a real home run. I imagine we're getting cold foils of that in like an armory kit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which I'm definitely I have my eyes on. I do have the
Tekla
Tekla
Leveler was
leveler.
this month. Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, it's very nice. What's your favorite equipment?
Now this is a tough question
Well, there's a
because
lot.
there's a lot. Equipment, when I was looking at this, I said that, the cards that go in your deck, they're that technically they're equipment, and so you know what I'm gonna go for with this one? I'm gonna go with I really love the Evo Steel Soul. What's the head one? I forget the name of it.
I'm not. I might be.
At Memory. It's Evo Steel Soul Memory. Yeah. That one, I've only opened one in all of my boxes.
Yeah.
But in all of my testing, that card is fantastic. Like especially if you're playing a game of attrition with Tekla, because what's important about it is that it's a little tricky. When you equip it, you need to make sure you're equipping it onto another Evo to get the trigger. You can't equip it to your base to get the intellect trigger. So you kind of need to build a little bit of flexibility into your deck. But I love the fact that when you do build the flexibility into your deck, that one has a very strong payoff of an extra intellect for a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Also, who doesn't love Mexodia? But Singularity is not an equipment.
True.
Yeah. How about you?
That's a good answer. I think that personally, I really like. God, I'm blanking on the name. The legendary headpiece that puts hyperdrivers underneath.
Oh,
X3.
Hyper X3.
Hyper X3.
Yeah.
That is an awesome headpiece, especially in the max deck, and really just I love those kind of like bonuses of like, oh, I boosted something away, but I get something out of it.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, especially like it doesn't stack, but it does stack in a way, but once you get more than 3, each one you do is going to net you a card. But besides that, I think it's the equipment was lacking for me. That one's very cool, but I think that even the Evos are neat, but there was just something missing for me, and I don't know what it was, but the Hyper X3 was huge. I think in terms of like playing with it in Constructed has been a lot of fun.
It makes a lot of sense, right? Because like I remember on the set review you were talking about the this Construct Nitro Mechanoid build where you kind of need that good mech headpiece to be able to do that plan. And an Evo isn't really the best thing for that because you kind of like a lot of them have blade break. You don't really want to be doing it, especially with the breakers, because you lose them when you play them. But that's a really nice, like, good filler mech headpiece. I do want to shout out the equipment in the set just generally because it's made, I think, mech decks a lot cheaper overall.
Yeah.
Because like people aren't really playing as many legendaries, right? Like if you're playing Evos, you're not playing, Crown of Providence. Like you're not playing Foundry Heart. Well, Foundry Heart is still very good, and I think the reprint of it was just a fantastic inclusion. Just because we needed another version of it. Tunic, shout out to Tunic. Can't thank the reprint of that enough. It's like $73 at the time of this video right now. Awesome. Insane.
I pulled one. Actually, I didn't pull it. Lady Fresh pulled it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
It's hers now.
Yeah, it is. She sold it.
Nice.
$100. No, I'm kidding. Above market. No, I'm kidding. Okay, actually, before we move on to the other card types, I do want to get your opinion on, because like we could bring this up in the impressions, but this kind of fits here. The Marvel treatment.
Yeah.
In this set, I think I'm not like a Marvel collector, whether it is one end of the spectrum or another. So don't really have a dog in the race, but I will say these are the least different.
I agree.
And do you think they kind of dropped the ball here, or did they try something? It's just not working out, or was this on purpose?
So I think that the Marvels, while not as impactful as, something like the Dragons or the Angels, you have to think about the age of the concept of Marvels and like what phase we're in of exploring what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time we actually saw Marvels was like Everfest, right? And that was not even a real Marvel
Yeah.
rarity. It was just like Starvo with two sides. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So LSS was really trying something with Marvels and is trying to figure out that balance, right? You go to the level of, codexes where they look like pages out of a science book. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got, flip cards that are full art dragons. Would I have loved to see these be like make a Voltron picture when you flip them over? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what that would have done? It would have made them significantly more expensive because
Yeah.
they're majestics. We see these dynasty marvels that are these pieces of equipment. Some of them are still around $100. But you only need one of those. This you
Yeah.
need three. And so I don't think that people not liking them is invalid, because it's true they don't look as good as something like Amethyst Tiara or Rock.
Yeah.
you know but what I do really like about them is that, especially the breaker ones, I got one today, they make the lighting look pretty great in the cold foil, because it's bright lights. It's in for that set piece, they're making it bright. For the Evo Soul, they kind of darken it a bit. They make
Yeah.
it like a bit more shadowy evil, so I think it's a bit more matching the theme, but I think the execution wasn't exactly what they were intending.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And I'm looking at, I have a Marvel Evo Circuit breaker right in front of me, and
Mhm.
you know, it it still looks nice. It's like it's still
Yeah.
like got that nice foiling. It's just I think the art, I would have expected the art to kind of be just a little
Yeah.
bit, because I'm looking at both of them together, right? I have them right here for those people
Yeah.
watching at home. It looks almost the same, except the obviously the foiling. But so it's just interesting. I wonder how the general public kind of
Yeah.
feels and how the buds feel. If the buds want to comment how they feel about them, I'd love you to, because I need to know how people feel about them, because I don't know. Are they worth holding on to, or
Yeah.
etc. They probably are, because they are still a rare treatment of something. So, and right now they're probably going to be not the lowest they'll ever be, but they're, based on what we'll talk about in a bit, the playability of some of the stuff coming out of the set, it might not be the right time for these cards. But when it is, a lot like
Yeah.
Dromai, right? Like when Dromai's
Yep.
popping off, the dragons
Oh,
pop
yeah.
off. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting. And we're not like a financial podcast.
No.
So. Now, what's your favorite other card
Yeah.
version
This one's
stuff?
this one's gonna surprise you. I would like you to guess what my favorite is,
Ooh,
because I think you might know what I know what I think I would say, but it's not even close. So,
I I don't know. Mm,
well, I'll tell you
Magnetic Lockwave.
why. Because it's a bad card. I'm just kidding. No, I,
Oh
I
wait,
was
I
expecting.
should have guessed the yellow.
I was kind of expecting you'd say the Viscerai specialization.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
I was
but
excluding expansion slots, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, my favorite card in the set is Scrap Compactor.
Scrap Compactor. That is the one that
Scrap Compactor.
you don't.
Yeah.
Is that the gain a resource one?
That is the one where you can play an Evo as an instant when you banish
Oh
something.
yes. Oh, I'm looking at it right
I
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see this card as Snapcaster Mage, because it is in Teklevasen, you essentially are getting a significantly more value than what's written on the card.
Hmm.
You get to play an attack for free that does damage, that requires opponents to prevent some damage, while also being able to spend whatever resources you have that turn to be able to play that Evo, which doesn't require the resource investment. Um, Very, very important card in Professor Teklebasen.
Hmm.
But I think a limited All Star, simply on the fact that it blocks 3. You are able to block with your Evos, and then you do not have to invest resources to buff yourself and play extra defensive to regain the tempo you lost from blocking a bunch.
Yeah.
It gains you so much tempo on an incremental level that I think people are really sleeping on it as like a limited card.
I found it to be excellent in limited,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about it, but it almost makes me Gary, it makes me so mad that mechanologist got the keyword scrap, because this might be this might be my favorite keyword in Flesh and Blood, which but like not because I don't really plan on ever playing it outside of limited, but like it might be just I love it. It's just so good, and my favorite card out of the set is Scrap Harvester. Mostly I wish, so it's mostly because of the art. I kind of wish that the art for Scrap Harvester was on Junkyard Dog, because I think I like playing Junkyard Dog more. It has it just plays more to my play style. But Scrap Harvester is, I think, after looking at the set a lot, is my favorite art in the set. And I love Scrap as a mechanic. And also, I just love the synergies it has with Crank. But, I think all the Scrap cards are very, very cool, especially in limited. But, like, even Compactor, I think, really has its place in probably any version of Teklo-Vaz, if I were to guess, at least at the blue. So, but Scrap's very cool. Scrap is very cool. Yeah. But let's get to our impressions here, because there's a lot of different facets to this set, right? Because this is a limited set. We're finally in the groove of playing limited all the time in Flesh and Blood. This is going to be the set that kicks it off, right? They said that
bright.
Yep, the lights are so bright. We need sunglasses. But it also introduced three new, not like one or two, three new constructed heroes to the Blitz, UPF, Commoner, and CC. And we're going to see it played at the high stage in limited at Worlds. So let's talk about constructed first. So I want to talk about CC. It's the biggest format in the game. Yeah. So it's worth talking about. We had the first tournaments where these heroes were legal over the weekend in Milwaukee. I don't know about elsewhere.
There was one in Japan too.
Was Tokyo over the weekend?
I wasn't fully paying attention. I was pretty busy this weekend.
I think it was Blitz, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
I wish I had looked into it more.
But I was traveling this weekend, but CC.
Lexi.
The PTI and the Battle Hardened were Lexi, but also notably, the top eights were lacking in any of these heroes, right? Yeah, and we can talk about why. There currently could be two reasons. The first reason would be it's the first weekend of the format. Not everybody has the cards. Right.
Yeah, I'm missing a singularity.
Like
in 3 cases, I'm missing a singularity. So like we opened 2 locally.
Yeah, it's and some of these it could be very well that people just don't have the adult hero versions of the cards, and because I opened a case, I only got one adult hero, Teklo, and so that could be it. It could also be this is just not the format for it, right? And there's a lot of figuring out to do, and it's still Lexi time until right before Worlds. So it's hard to say what it is. What would you say is the issue here? Because we have 3 very different heroes, and notably, I don't even think I saw any old school Dash make it in with new support, which was a fear for people, right? All of a sudden, Dash, which was a hero that could spike tournaments, is about to get a whole new set of cards. So what's your take on why this didn't happen?
Yeah, so my take on this is that it's the same problem that the limited environment has. People are trying to figure this out. And like many people who play Runeblade, for an example, they overthink it. They're overthinking it. They're trying to make the best hand or the best deck, looking for consistency. And rather than, explosive power over consistency, like that's kind of this balance that a lot of, especially Runeblade players deal with, like Mauve, Shrill, Rosetta, right? Versus like focusing on, I'm using my Runeblade because that's my personal experience. But like, think about how long it took for people to realize that Icelander was a great hero. it took Michael Hamilton playing Wounded Bull in that deck to be able to finally realize that this is a good hero. Because people were just like, oh, she's disruptive, sure, but like she's still a wizard. You know what I mean? Wizards are frail. She's weak to the fact that you have to play things on your opponent's turn, and if they can power through that, you're dead, kind of thing. But it takes a lot of innovation to really get to that point, and I think it's a combination of not having the reps, and also just like trying to figure out the best version of it rather than just trying it, seeing what happens.
Yeah.
I do also think that the population density of just the Lexis in general, as a consistently powerful hero, is gonna be powerful because Mech doesn't have great matchups into Lexi. It's not like a wizard meta where Mech can just play a bunch of blues and attack with pistol a bunch of times and they can win. But this is like Lexi, you kind of have to race or you have to have nasty on hits, and we don't have Briar anymore to race them, and the nasty on hits are kind of just their guardian, and they're maybe some Viscera Mauvrian skies going on, but like Dash is really they gotta play fast. They can't really, and they gotta hedge for control as well, right? So it's like there's this weird aether of like too much aggression while also not knowing what's going on that makes it a little bit too daunting to play something creative and just focus and instead just play something that they know is going to win. So I really think it's a mix of those two factors.
Yeah, it certainly could. I mean, when there's Pro Tour invites on the line,
yeah,
people are going to bring what we know as the best deck, and I'm glad they did because she hit LL, which is very cool. But I do feel like maybe personally, I feel like we're kind of in this limbo because of that we're not getting like real innovation with these decks. And because personally I think, and this is very much for the constructed portion, for Teklo, you mentioned Singularity. I think Singularity is the biggest trap for
and
the
CC
deck
for sure.
Yeah, for the deck and the way you build it, right? Like I think it's so cool. It really is. It's like a cool thing to do. I'm a Leviathan player. I live the demi hero life. It's awesome. Trust me. Play the better one. Play Leviathan. But
did you say worse? Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
No, you heard me correctly.
Okay.
But I think it's very much Exodia or whatever you want to call it, like Ultron.
Exodia.
yeah. It's Tron in Magic or whatever. But it's just right now because it's a brand new hero, and sure, it has a ton of Mechanologist cards, but it doesn't have a ton of support for just that, right?
Yeah.
So we're not seeing a lot of things to smooth out the ways to get to Singularity. Sure, it can happen, no doubt. I'm sure it will happen at some point on a stream somewhere, and it'll be very, very cool, and people are going to lose their minds, and it's going to be awesome. I'll be happy for all those people, but I think personally it's a trap, but that doesn't mean Teklo's bad, right? In CC especially. And I think that you got to look at the hints that you see in Limited, right?
Yep.
What makes Teklo work in Limited? Because it's operating without like all the strongest cards, so you're really focused on the synergy. And we'll talk about Limited in a hot minute, and there's a lot of things going on in that Limited sphere, and I hope people learn from that and apply it to Teklo Voss. And it's something I actually want to do because I enjoyed playing Teklo in Limited so much, but all the deck lists I saw for Teklo currently are the Singularity things, understandably, because people want to build the mech suit. I understand that. Now,
I would encourage you to try him in Blitz.
Yeah, I probably would really enjoy him in Blitz. Now, let's talk about Blitz. So, we have Bright Lights here, 3 new young heroes. I mentioned that Max is something I'm interested in. It's a nice little aggro synergy boost deck. Really, really cool. Dash is awesome. We haven't really talked about Dash IO or what's the young version called?
Dash Database. Or Dash the sequel for you data analysts.
Okay. And Dash is really neat and has like a lot of things going for her. And that's just another piece of the
a whole
puzzle.
other piece, right?
Because that deck is so complex, I think that we might not see that good version for a bit, but it definitely might have the highest ceiling, in my opinion. But for Blitz, I think we got 3 new heroes, and I'm sorry, but I don't know what happened in Tokyo. I thought I heard maybe Chain did well, but maybe that was a tournament a couple weeks ago. But I think there's a lot of potential here for the Blitz heroes. You mentioned Professor Teklo, and it's worth bringing up because we did get round the table, and that is kind of a little offshoot, or at least the Professor Teklo part is an offshoot of Bright Lights.
I do also want to allude to the fact that Ninja got a few unique cards, and Guardian actually got boots that block 3. They do give your opponent a Quicken token. I believe they're Civic Steps. It's a 2-block temper. I know that Guardian players bought that product just for those boots in CC, so they can block 3. But yeah, I think that the competitive value of that product should not be overlooked, as well as the learn to play component of it as well. But I think for Blitz especially, you really should be considering Professor Teklovasan over regular Teklovasan, and that's kind of why I'm leaning heavily into it. And I've been playing a lot of Blitz recently, mainly because Viscera is not the best in CC right now, and I play him regardless of if it's the best in CC. But it's more like I don't have the time to sit down for a 4-hour armory and play CC for 4 hours. I'd rather play 4 games of Blitz in 2 hours. But yeah, so I do want to talk about the Professor a little bit here, because what you're speaking to with the the singularity trap is really real. Like, how do you make this 4-cost equipment like pan out when playing them as an instant would cost you 7 resources? Like, that's so much money. It's like you literally need 3 cards to pull that off, or like 2 cards in a tunic, which you're not playing because you're playing the Evos. But the Professor has a very, very powerful ability of making the Evo Steel Souls cost 3 instead of 4. And that is almost game breaking. In my opinion, I think that it makes it, so you are essentially playing like a Guardian with an extra 5 block on every piece of equipment on every Evo you equip. So if you have 8 Evo Souls in your deck, they have Temper 3. So they get to block 3, and then they get to block 2 again, unless they shred. I lost to shred really bad. But so think about this. What if you could pay 3 to block 5? Well, that's unmovable, right?
Yeah.
But now,
Blue,
what if you could,
right?
Blue unmovable, right?
Okay.
Yeah, blue unmovable. Sorry. But now, what if you could have that at your disposal all the time, and then when you play another one, you can refresh that unmovable? You can end up with literally 40 life in Blitz, and it's not that difficult to maintain a hand of a blue and a scrap compactor, because you've already blocked with all of your equipment. So you just keep a 2-card hand. You block with your Evo Steel Soul, scrap compactor, make them take the damage, and then you play you're literally playing unmovable from the Banish Zone.
Very cool.
It's Guardian of the Shadow Realm, Tommy.
Wow.
It's literally Guardian of the Shadow Realm, except that you get to turn
except
into
it's good.
Except you get to turn into a Exodia.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that the fact that the Evo Souls cost 4 is a real big restriction. It's really hard to get over that. But I think when you really look at the Professor and you say, wow, a 2-card hand gives me a block 5 that sits on the battlefield, and one of them gives me 5 intellect. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Like, I think the fact that there's only like 5 Talishar Blitz decks for the Professor right now is an oversight.
Yeah.
On a Talishar on February, but yeah.
We'll check FabDB later.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for what Blitz is going to be right now. I know Mo Bogsley's quaking in his boots now that Evos don't have Arcane Barrier, but I got a lot of passion for Blitz right now because I love the Professor. I think you just think about the math a bit and think about, I get to play unmovable from the Banish Zone. That's sick.
It's
well,
very
also,
cool.
That's how I've been viewing it almost. And maybe that's an oversimplification, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for it, and I think the other heroes probably will have some game too. And
Melody's crazy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, out around the table, but I mean, just from bright lights. I mean, Max is
sorry.
pretty. Max is pretty
I've been playing a lot of
straightforward.
UPS.
Yeah, it's all good. Max is pretty straightforward, and Dash obviously has some figuring out to do. But the boom grenade is insane.
Yeah, the boom grenade's insane. I mean, but you know what else is insane? Mini force field.
Oh yeah. Well, I love a lot of those.
Yeah.
those items. I think they're so much fun. And we're gonna get to it in limited, but
Yeah.
I think other than that, like there's some cool commoner decks coming out of this. Like anything that has a limited format, I feel like it's easier to have some really cool commoner decks come out of it because it basically works like a really well built limited deck most of the times. I'm excited to see maybe the data that Smithel puts out from
Oh yeah.
yeah. It would be kind of interesting to see, especially I think their new season is just starting now, and if like these new heroes make a big splash in commoner, which is something that people pay attention to,
Especially because we got a lot of like repeat boost cards. Like you get a lot of like these 0 cost boosts. Like at common, like that wasn't for Dash. That wasn't happening. You know what I mean? You didn't have like a 0. You didn't have a 9 0 cost red boosts. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in commoner?
It could be pretty wild. And I don't personally think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of these heroes are making a big splash in the Living Legends format. I think it's pretty stacked going on over there. A lot of the non Living Legend heroes might have some trouble, but some of the things like Bloodsheath Skeleton and stuff like that being legal changes some things. But yeah, that's all the constructed stuff. I think it's very exciting. Nothing really groundbreaking right now yet. Obviously, the Professor is a big one.
Yeah,
for Blitz.
I love him.
But CC, I think we're a little ways away. I was very surprised not to see something crack into those top 8s. But maybe it's just the Lexi menace, and it's something that we have to deal with for Pro
It's the uncertainty. It's the uncertainty. It's just like there's too much cooking right now. You don't know. You don't want to submit a final dish that's not gonna pan out. You want to submit that perfect dish that is gonna win you the tournament.
I get it. I am submitting dishes all the time, and revenge is a dish best served cold. Not that has anything to do with sealed and draft. But sealed, I played some pre-releases, had a good time.
Yeah, I loved them.
The sealed, sealed was sealed. It was fun. It didn't feel personally like any of the heroes were a little out of control. It felt like Dash was harder to make work, but I felt like it was a lot of Max and it was a lot of Teklo. And Teklo was based on how many Evos you opened, and I guess Dash was based on kind of how many boom grenades.
Yeah, true. I do want to say something about the limited real quick. If you haven't played limited yet, you have a draft coming up, make sure you keep in mind that any hero can play the Teklo leveler.
Yep.
Not just Teklovasan. I know that the other two have their specialized weapons, but going into it may seem like you just always would want to play Symbiosis Shot as Dash, or you might always want to play the Crank Wrench as Max, but that's not always the case. Teklo leveler, if your pool has a few good Evos, but you're not really thinking you want to go Teklovas and you want to have kind of merge the two with like maybe some items with boom grenades while also having some decent Evos, the Teklo leveler can get you very far if you're planning to go long. That's the importance. Going long, you need the Teklo leveler, and that doesn't have to just be Teklovasan. And when we get to this draft, I do have some thoughts about draft, and why the hybrid relationship of playing Evos not in Teklo is important.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's right now it might not be obvious in terms of ways to leverage the Teklo leveler in the other two strategies because they're very synergy focused, but and it might just be something just off the top of my head, at least in Dash, right? Let's say, like, obviously you need the Evos first.
Yeah.
That's
For
the
sure.
first check mark,
Yep.
obviously, to even use the leveler. But if Dash is like, I drafted just kind of like this aggro deck with
Yeah.
with a couple boom grenades.
Yeah.
And like the boom grenades, like you're only gonna crank or not crank, but like you're only gonna throw an item out once or twice a game. The pistol is not really worth it. But if you have some evos going, and you can all of a sudden get to a point where you're going, 3 go again and stuff like that, it feels a lot better. Now,
especially good with dash, because if you get to 2 evos, your gun only costs you 1, which means you have an additional resource to be able to play any of the 0 or 1 cost items from the top of your deck, even without go again.
Yeah.
So it's at a point where you could you obviously do need to be able to build that hybrid level deck. But I do think that it's something to keep in mind, because I think there's that immediate heuristic of we're playing this 6-shooter gun in dash, we're playing this wrench in max, and Teklo's over there with his giant machine gun.
Yeah. It ends up being the question of, I think, sure, you have the evos. What's the reason? Now I drafted the evos. What's the reason I'm not playing Teklovas? And then once you answer that question, then you can start to understand why you should play the leveler over the other 2 items now, or weapons. Now draft. I'll let you have your time here, but I want to say I drafted the set, and I'm a limited junkie, and this set was a lot of fun to draft. And
as a mech not enjoyer.
As like not a mech guy, right? And the big reason is, and I mentioned it before, but scrap. I just love the way that mechanic works. It just feels right. Like I want it on like a generic card so I could, cash in my Crown of Providence or whatever.
You've got looking for scrap.
I see. Close. It is a little bit disappointing that it's not the same, but I understand. It is a lot of fun. It felt like the decisions were really mattered throughout the whole pack. Well, not the whole pack, but a majority of the pack. It felt like that. It felt like there was a lot of things that still need to be discovered, and probably will be when people start getting their pick orders kind of like focused and understanding where they are in their seat. Because when you're drafting the set initially, you're just like, oh, well, it kind of just looks like I'm going to play Teklo, or I'm going to play Dash, or whatever. So once that kind of settles in and people kind of figure out the set, I'm very excited to see like the kind of bizarre deck construction that you'll see in a draft, like mid stage of this format. So it's very interesting. I liked it a lot. I'm excited to draft it again. I hope my armory fires tomorrow and then I get to draft it. But if not, I drove an hour for nothing. So folks, go to the armory. Go to your armory. But yeah, all right. You talk about your thoughts here.
So I have a little bit of a contentious point that I'm going to make here, and I hope that you don't kick me off and we get to finish the episode. But I actually don't think that Bright Lights is, when in a draft environment, is a Flesh and Blood set. I actually think it's closer to the banned Magic the Gathering set.
What?
Because Tommy, I know you one of your favorite things of the old game, of the old ways, was limited.
Yeah. No doubt.
And what was in Magic Limited, there's this term bread. So bombs, what's next?
Removal, and then some other stuff. I forget. It's been a while.
Evasion. And then
attack.
Basically attacks. Basically it's like attack aggression. To be able to actually deal damage. And I think what this set actually does better than any other set is it gives you that first that pick order of bread, because when you were drafting Magic, you kind of had to stay open, right? You weren't always just playing. I mean, sometimes you'd play a single color, right? You'd play, oh, I got every single removal spell, so I'm just playing black the whole. I'm taking every black card in the pack. But that's not how your deck works. In Magic, in most card games, consistency and synergy is so important. And like if you've ever sat down at a draft for like a Ravnica, where the whole set is built around being in two colors, that is almost like, it's kind of reminds me of this set.
Sure.
Because you kind of have to build with with that bread in mind. So bombs, you want all those good, if you open a Majestic, you're gonna take the Majestic like an Evo Steel Soul. If you take that, you get 5 block just sitting there on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Like we talked about. But that's not gonna win you the game, because you don't have ways to actually, remove things. You don't have enough ways to deal with the threats that your opponents are putting out if you only are taking bombs, because it's not like Magic. You can't just have this bomb that wins you the game. So removal is very important. But how do we deal with removal in a set like this? Well, in Flesh and Blood, I've always felt that fatigue is essentially removal. If you can block out an opponent's most effective cards, you've essentially just destroyed that creature.
Yeah.
If you are able to block out a boom grenade turn, you have destroyed their boom grenade without taking the damage. And I think that we need to think about this draft set more critically when it comes to what removal means, what our synergy is, and what we're trying to do as far as evicting the threats from our opponent. Because I think up until now, it's like, oh, I'm in Guardian, so I am going to be doing the Guardian plan, or honestly, in Outsiders, it was like, oh, I'm going to take these. I'm going to be Benji, I might be Katsu. So there's this kind of hybrid mentality being developed in the last 2 draft sets that I'm really a big fan of. And staying open has been very important, especially in the last 2 draft sets. So then we have bombs, removals, evasion.
Tommy, which we have a decent amount of this.
Yes, we have plenty of evasion in this set. We have overload. We've got can't be blocked by equipment when there's a lot of equipment in the set. So this is not a Flesh and Blood set. We're following bread from Magic here. If you see a lay waste, a red lay waste, you're gonna take that over just some other 2 for 5 because it can't be defended by equipment. So in the end game that could win you the game. Or similar to Convulsions from Bellows of Hell from Monarch Draft. That is bomb ass evasion, right? I lost all my Monarch. I went through all my Monarch drafts. I went 2-1 because I lost to Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell. So when we're drafting this set, you're actually keeping bread in mind, which is very crazy to me, because it's like, you're not keeping your class in mind. You're keeping your consistency and your synergy alive to be able to consistently deal damage. And the next you have aggro aggression. And I think it's very important here that with Flesh and Blood, especially, and in this set, you've got boost. Boost is like the main way you have aggression. But we also need to think about fueling that aggression and what the cost of that is. Like in Magic, when you play a creature that has haste or whatever, there's no cost other than that creature can't block.
Yeah.
Right. But when you play something with haste in Flesh and Blood, you lose a card from your deck, which means you are supplying your opponent with removal. So we need to think very critically about how we're approaching each of these fights. And then you have dudes, or D, which is, and I think that's the filler. Yeah. And I think that's what people are shitting on in this set, quite frankly. They're like, oh, why do I need this bad 1 for 4 that with boost? Well, it blocks 3, and you need it because it could be removal.
Yeah. And you have to have bad cards. It's not even like they're bad. Yeah. You just gotta have cards that are super not, playable. And there was a prominent former Magic pro, somewhat Flesh and Blood pro, who was talking about all these cards and same stats, they just do a little bit different. I don't understand that argument. They do something different. That was like the key thing that person was arguing about.
Flying and menace are not the same keyword.
Yeah. But I will argue against your point. I think evasion's always, and you basically proved your point, that evasion was always really important in Flesh and Blood since Convulsions from the Bells of Hell. And and Bravo in Welcome to Wraith,
Yeah.
like just having the dominate on the stick, and
Shiver on the arrow on in Tales of Aria.
yeah, exactly. It's always been really important. Maybe it's a little bit more realized here, right?
Yeah.
Like your picks kind of matter a little bit more. Like you're getting a little bit more of that. I will say, I mean, even like LSV and Marshall Sutcliffe kind of threw away Brett at some point.
Yeah,
It's very an antiquated way to look at Magic Limited, but I would almost challenge, well, maybe not us, we got other stuff, but I would almost challenge Gorganian Tome, Dylan, to come up with like the same way he came up with a different way to look at archetypes in Flesh and Blood with fighting games. Maybe we could start to think about key components to a good draft deck or good draft picks and a good draft deck in Flesh and Blood that's not bombs, because there's no real bomb in
exactly.
I mean
the bombs were legendary.
The grenade is a little bit too on the nose.
But and we don't have legendaries to deal with anymore. So you're not taking a legendary because it's a bomb now. You're taking a legendary because it was in the expansion slot. So
so like that is something that but you're on the right track, and I think we had a lot of the synergy's always been really important in Flesh and Blood draft, because you're drafting a hero, but it's just a little bit more apparent because things could go really badly while you're still picking cards from your class in this set. And but I think they did a great job with it. This is I will say it now, this might be an early take, but the Bright Lights might go down as maybe one of like probably top 10 limited Flesh and Blood sets of all time in a few years down the road. I think this will be a set that, and it really might depend on how things go at Worlds and how these pros kind of figure things out, but I could see folks looking back like, Bright Lights was pretty awesome. I think that about Outsiders as well, to be honest, but a little bit biased. And
I think one last point on that before I run out of air on the draft topic. Just because you're thinking of like whatever pick order you decide, I think what more, like you alluding to what you said, more important than ever, like staying open and, deciding, like, I loved what you were saying of when we were talking about when you're drafting the Evos, what is the reason you're not playing Tekla-Vaesen?
Yeah.
And we've never been in that position before. And that's why this doesn't feel to me like it's a traditional Flesh and Blood set. It's like, why am I choosing this play style? It's like, why am I splashing black in a red deck versus like, why aren't I just playing max to the max, And so I think that's something that we haven't really experienced before, but people will learn to love as they play more of the set.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm excited to get some more reps under my belt. Now we do have some listener questions, Gary.
I do have one thing I want to talk about before the listener questions.
Before the listener questions?
Some speculation here.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have some speculation. Oh, you kind of wrote that in the notes.
Yes.
What is your speculation?
I have some speculation. Okay, so I was listening to all these set reviews, and I went down my own like Pepe Sylvia rabbit hole.
Sure.
Because what I realized was people loved the ability Galvanize.
Yeah.
The ability Galvanize is like really impactful in the set because like it basically makes a card either very good because you could always just block for 4, or not always, or you could always play it, or it blocks for 4. And I agree. I love Galvanize. I think it adds just a dynamic to certain cards that just isn't there. When like it makes a 3 for 7 better, which is hard to do, honestly, at a 3 for 7. But then I thought about how we have 3 different archetypes. We've got the boost guy with the wrench who really likes to, go aggro. We've got the lady robot that likes to make items, does things when these items go into play, and we've got the robot Iron Man guy that likes to play the Evos. But none of that relates to destroying items in any way. It's more of like a passing thought. But what I've learned is that LSS doesn't really have passing thoughts. They have thoughts and then they execute, a la the Emperor. So you have this or Shiana, right? This very, very top down hero that is hyper focused on a specific kind of mechanic that would not work in draft because it would either be too powerful or it would be too like on the nose. Like could you imagine if you could choose the Emperor in draft?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good, right? Because you're 15, but it's also not of the classes that is in the set, right? But then I looked at Galvanize, and I actually discovered, in defense of this card, Cognition Field. I have it here for the readers, the watchers at home. Cognition Field.
Yeah.
It's a rare. Okay, it's a rare block. That blocks for 1 as a blue, and a 3 as a red.
Yeah.
It just has Galvanize. That's all it has.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a blue block 1 with Galvanize.
Yeah.
That's a really, really bad card.
Yeah. The blue.
That's a really bad card. The red,
it's just titanium ball.
Here,
yeah.
It's just this not what you have to blow up a bauble.
Yeah. You have to blow up a bauble
right?
to do it.
Right, exactly. So that got me thinking. I was like, wait a minute. We're gonna get a hero that wants to destroy items. We haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten it yet because like this card is really bad and this card's fine, but why would you just not play the attack that has Galvanize? Then I thought about it. I did some research. Apparently, galvanizing, the idea of using zinc to create a more strong finish, was actually originated as an alchemical tool for changing the chemical structure of weapons, of things. And so when you read Galvanize, it says when this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do this, this gets +2. What's missing from that sentence that is on all the other mech cards?
Mechanologist item.
Item. So potions are not mechanologist items.
True.
And potions like to be destroyed, but they like to be destroyed by their own effects.
Yes.
So my thought, and I don't know if this is exactly what it's going to be, and this is just more my Pepe Sylvia, Charlie in the mailroom.
Sure.
I think we're going to get the Alchemist as a mechanologist.
Interesting.
Who is a hyper defensive, almost like Riptide hero that wants to be playing items that either give them bonuses or when you destroy them a la trap, you deal damage. Because we have so many defensive items that you could activate and then destroy. So dissolving shield, right?
Yeah.
You pay resource, you block 2, and then you use it to galvanize for 6 block.
Pretty good.
Now I'm pretty good, right? But it's even better when you get to destroy the item for a bonus, which we currently cannot do. Another option, the TikTok clock bomb, right?
Yeah. What does that one do
TikTok
again?
bomb.
I got it over here.
It is an item that it has crank, but you have to pay 1 or remove a Steve counter to keep it around. Pay 1 life. When a mechanologist, so it's when a mechanologist item you can attack, you control hits, you may destroy it and 2 other items in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
Those are often pretty good when you're playing wizard or other decks that have play items like dash. But imagine if you wanted your items to be destroyed.
Yeah. Well, also smashing performance is any item on the arena. Now,
I've got thoughts on that too, but we'll wait till the listener questions because Sigma didn't ask one, but I'm gonna supply him with one.
Okay. Well, also, to bring it back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
If you listened to 2 episodes ago with Dead Summer Art, it is very flavorful that Max is out destroying items and machinery. There is some.
Yeah. Oh yes.
He would use them and then not care anymore. So, but I like where you're going. I do. I really like it. The alchemist like potion person could work. And was it Lena Bell? Yeah. I don't think she wouldn't be it, but I could see some sort of demolition specialist. Sure. Well, she's hanging out in the pits, right? Like it's right there. Now we got some listener questions.
Yep. Sorry, I had to get down.
It's good. Put it out into ether. So when you're right or you're wrong, one of us can clip it. a couple really serious questions here. First from Pat
Yeah,
Shaw, who
yeah.
says
Mhm.
or who asks, why does Mr. Viz love bad cards and bad pitches?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my answer is, Pat, you just haven't figured them out yet. They're
Hmm.
only bad cards and bad pitches because you think they're bad cards and bad pitches. It's a great question. It's a really great question. But yellow Runeblood Incantation has saved me so many games, honestly. The fact that it both makes rune chance and also pitches, fantastic card. I have like 30 of them. Thanks, Green Tree Sports Cards. Um, But yeah, I think it's the fact that people are I like to overanalyze what the outcome of playing a card could give you. And so sometimes I get in a little bit over my head, but other times I think about, averaging out those bad hands because Runeblade has a lot of them. And sometimes you just need an extra one resource that a yellow can offer.
Well, as Two Chains once said, I love bad pitches. That's my effing
Yes.
problem. Um,
Mhm.
Jeff O
Oh God.
asks, how dare you?
You know why I did it, and I would do it again.
Oh boy. Capolo, aka Capolo. We haven't seen the body pillow in a long time. How's it doing? Is it still alive?
It's here. It's here.
Look at that.
It's joined the episode. I know it's not. I know the pillow is not on the YouTube thumbnail this time, but you know what? Honestly, it's probably better because Viz is getting a little shy lately. Um, but no, the pillows. Honestly, the pillowcase itself, I've been taking it to all the events that I've been to. But the problem is, it's kind of getting worn out because I have to carry it around with me all the time, and so like it's like I gotta put it on the table or it rubs against like a zipper on my like jacket or something, and then it's starting to wear. And so I don't think I'm gonna be bringing it around as much just because I don't want it to break. I love it. I love the pillowcase that the Buds got me in PT New Jersey, and I love it, but I would rather it not fall apart on me.
Belongs in a museum.
Yeah. Yes.
William from the Table Pit, Big Willie style.
Mhm.
How is Viserai in the Living Legends format, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think Viserai is going to be the Lexi right now of the Living Legends format, of like the Lexi of the CC right now, because people really love Skelda, or you hate Skelda. Fair either way. But
Sure.
like the card is insane. Bloodshot Skelda is one of the most broken cards ever. I love it. And only recently with Sonata Phantasmia did I finally agree that that card should have been banned from CC. So I shall concede to anybody who was telling me this otherwise, and I was in denial. I think the fact that you get to block two and then still be able to generate six or more resources off of your chess piece is basically just the most above rate thing you can ever do in the game, especially with Rattlebones existing. So I think he's going to do really well. I think he's going to have a lot of issues though because Icelander was not a huge deal. What the Icelander wasn't actually really around when Viserai was able to be using the CC chess piece. So she's going to have hypothermia. She's going to have all of these disruption pieces that will go a long way to stop and literally like ruin your whole turn if you pop your Skeleta. So I'm really worried about all the extra ice disruption that he's going to have to encounter. I'm still going to play him. I love Viserai so much. I got a cold foil from somebody in Taiwan. So shout out to Amelia in the Buzz Discord. But yeah, I am really excited for Viserai. I think that he's not going to be as potent as people think, because you can literally just lose your whole turn off of a hypothermia, which didn't exist back when people, and hypothermia is one card in the whole format, but Icelander is going to be very good there.
Sure. No, absolutely. I'm excited to see how that format shakes out. We have an event at Worlds. Should be interesting to see how it pans out. Final question comes from Kale.
Yeah.
AKA Dead Summer Art. What are your predictions for Viserai's storyline going forward? Do you agree with my thoughts that he will return to Volcor, or do you have a theory about what he is doing in Arathiel?
Yeah, I feel like he's just having his gap year. He's just on a journey, figuring himself out. seeing if he wants to go back. He wants to go to college. Wants to work at Starbucks for however long. Maybe he's just like figuring it out, dude. And I think he's just trying to figure it out. If I had to guess, I actually do love your Volcor theory, Kale, because I would love nothing more than a flame scale furnace with Viscerai, because that means you could play a bunch more reds. And oftentimes I would not be playing yellows in a Draconic Viscerai for you, Pat Shaw. I would be playing flame scale furnace, which also blocks 2 and generates 3 to 6 resources depending on how many cards you draw.
But that new
tome,
new book.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if Viscerai had the book, had the flame scale furnace, he's just figuring it out, reading a few fiery texts, trying to go back to the volcano from whence he was formed. I think that he's gonna have a good time, and he's gonna be turning into the Draconic Runeblade we all want. Every single player wants to see.
Draconic Runeblade, isn't that just the Emperor? What are you talking about?
Wizard Warrior, Tommy.
Wizard Warrior. No, believe me, yeah. I'm on the other side of that argument. You had a note for Sigma?
I have a note for Sigma. I know, Sigma's been really down on this set because Brute's got one card. It's got, a random item text on it. Doesn't block. I get it. I understand, the last 2 sets, I got a Viscerai specialization in each set, and it did nothing for the hero.
Sure.
I play neither of them. You can get all the support you want, but what you really need is other heroes to get things that make your hero better.
Yep.
And you know what? Sigma? Brute's got that. Brute's got mechs playing equipment that are cards in their deck. Brute's now can play Barraging Beatdown, and when they block 6, they still get the buff because Evos are equipment. Both in hand and on the battlefield.
Non-equipment. Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So, Barraging Beatdown and Pulping is really stupid.
Yeah, well,
really strong.
It also requires those decks to be good because, as we said earlier, they might not be.
Well, let's just say in Blitz, where Brute already is very strong.
Yeah. Well, it can continue to dominate.
Yeah. Continue to dominate. Yeah.
Sigma.
So
we love you.
Pulping. Just keep playing red Pulping. It'll work out.
We keep telling ourselves that. Us Brute players is just we're about to eat good in January or February, whenever that set comes out, and hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm interested to see. We saw a huge a huge paradigm shift in terms of the way they are approaching mechanologists. I mean, obviously we only had Data Doll and Dash before that, but this is still very different. And somehow was able to make 3 different heroes in an all mech set. Feel very different. It's very cool. So
maybe a fourth demolition hero.
Maybe a fourth. Well, it wasn't in the set. But I'm interested to see how they reimagine Brutes. Not just Unga Boonga, random. But they got to be careful because there's a lot of powerful Brute cards that exist. Yeah. And if they all of a sudden go into a deck that can fully utilize it, like without any kind of downside, things get a little shifty. So
I have a question for you then, Tommy.
Are
you saying that Bright Lights instilled some faith in you that Brute could be reimagined?
Yeah. I think maybe I'm a changed man. I still don't like mech as a class.
That's fair. I'm happy to hear that, because you were very concerned that it was just going to be, 6s and no blocks, and maybe it will be.
But,
I mean, I'm happy to hear.
I'm not out here holding my breath. All right, there hasn't been a lot of reason to think otherwise, other than Bright Lights. But we will see. I mean, excited for it regardless. I don't mind the randomness. Now, we plug some things. This is the show. That was it.
This is it. That's the show.
That's it.
Well, it's funny because I don't really have much to plug other than if you're already listening to this, just keep doing it. Um, join the Buds Discord. I highly recommend, thinking about, we talked about it at the top of the show, but think about being that store champion at your local store, trying to bring new people in. One example, there was, some guy at my card shop on Friday, and he was passively talking to his friend about Bright Lights, and it was Bright Lights set release. And I talked to him, gave him a Bard promo from the social play kit, told him all about the Round the Table. I said, hey, we're going to have an open play tomorrow. He showed up. He showed up at that open play. If I wouldn't have had that interaction with him, he wouldn't have shown up. He messaged me on Discord later asking me about different heroes. It can be intimidating to talk to new people and that way. But like, that player came to the event not because I gave him a promo, but because I was, I told him about the product. I told him, hey, there's going to be a bunch of players here. Want to teach people how to play, very casual. If your armories are super competitive, try and do one of these social plays. Try and set up another night where even if you can't, make an armory, you can make a social play, because you're cultivating a great community that's doing that. And I think that we get very sucked into the competitive nature of the game, and we forget about what brings people in the first place.
Yeah, we are all social creatures, and I think it's an important thing to realize, especially, there's a lot of talk about, what if I don't have a community? Yeah, maybe, but that's tough. But sometimes, when you're in something like an LGS, you already have a common interest with whoever else is in that LGS. And that's something I think that is important to realize, and is a great way to overcome any kind of anxiety you might have about talking to somebody you don't know.
Yes.
And I implore people to do it. And, I think it ends up making you some buds, which is what it's all about now.
One last thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at the Calling Dallas with these wonderful Vincent stickers. I've got plenty of them. If you find me, you'll get one, and maybe something else. They are very sparkly. They're very nice. And Vincent has a cute little mug with a bear on it. So definitely come. If you're watching the show on YouTube, you can see them. If you're not watching the show, you're listening to them. They're very sparkly and cute.
And just find Gary.
Find me. It won't be hard to find me.
It won't. Well, you won't have you'll be a judge.
No, but I'll be judging. But I'll be wearing this hat. I'll be wearing a few other things that I'm allowed to wear.
Cool.
So,
do all those things. Do all those things, buds. Find Gary. Beat him up. Take some of the stickers. Just kidding. You can all continue to find me on Twitter or X at FreshBudsPod. YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff's very helpful. The Discord, the Buds Discord, best place. Patreon is still, humming and dinging. What else? Spotify, if you listen on there, give us a rating. It helps us become discoverable or whatever. And also check out my other podcast I do with my cousin, Matt, called Fresh Juice, where we review indie games. We've reviewed 2 at this point, and it's a good time over there. What's some food? Meal of the week.
Yes, meal of the week. Yeah, we haven't had the meal of the week in a while. So my meal of the week is an interesting one. Because it didn't turn out like my first. So we had the social play event on Saturday. We played a 6-player UPF event. Which is essentially just we all played a 6-player game of UPF. But there was a person who had been coming regularly to the armories, but hasn't really become part of like the friendship circle kind of thing, where you see them outside, you have dinner with them, and we all kind of the plan was that a few of us were going to get together and just play board games after the armory, because you're trying to hang out with your buds, and this player came along, and we just played some board games after the armory for till midnight. It was like basically 12 hours of Flesh and Blood and board games, and we just had pizza. You know what I mean? We just had Santucci's pizza, which is, if you're familiar, it's basically like a rectangle pizza kind of, that's like a kind of a pan style crust, like very good.
Detroit style.
Yeah, kind of a Detroit style. Their traditional pie is like what's under the sauce kind of. It's under the sauce kind of thing, But we get like the barbecue chicken, fantastic. Also OG Pizza around the corner, chicken bacon ranch. I apologize. I know I'll be bleeped. White pizza, chicken bacon ranch. I mean, what can you do?
Nothing you can do, because I don't even have a lot of time to edit this podcast, so I can't even bleep it. So without further ado, and actually that put us right over the time for Charmer. So what can you do? And
what can you do?
What can you do? Thank you, everybody, and have a great week, and go to your local armory and start a draft. It's a good time, I swear.
Go Birds.
Goodbye.